What's up, everybody? It's Reggie Williams, founder and CEO of Ambrosia for Heads. And with me, I have Jake Payne, our editor-in-chief. And together, this is our What's the Headline podcast. How you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's good to be here. Happy holiday to you and all of our listeners and those that celebrate. Did you do anything special?
Went to a coworker spot. First time I've been there. First time I met his family, friends. And I find that I've had a couple Thanksgivings like that, and those have been my favorites, where you don't know what you're going to walk into. You meet new people. Everyone is super warm and welcoming. Just kind of remind you like of what it's all about, man. That connection, especially with this holiday. So it was dope. How about you?
That's cool. Did you get the sense when you left that you made some new connections?
100%, man. Really, his kid, he has two kids. One is a 14-year-old son. And he took over DJ and he was playing music for all the old folks. And for a second, I heard Family Ties. And I was like, yo, you cut the Family Ties? He's like, yeah. I didn't know. Like I said, nah, man. This is a time everybody's had drinks and everything. You just go with what you know, man. And so he played. We were listening to Baby Keem and talking about him and Kendrick. He loves Kendrick. He loves Lil Nas X, and I know you and I will talk about that too. But it was great, man. We bonded. It was really, really dope.
Man.
Yeah, how about you?
That's cool. Yeah, man. We little bit of jazz, little bit of Philly soul, Gamble and Huff type thing because we were in Philly, and it was just the two of us and two hungry dogs that got plenty of leftovers. And yeah, man. You know what's funny? The TV never came on. It was just music all day, good food, fellowship. Went on several walks. The neighborhood was really empty. It was cool, man. It filled the heart and soul.
Well, this weekend, if you do get some TV time, I wholeheartedly recommend Kevin Hart's True Story.
Okay.
He's got a new Netflix show, number one on Netflix now. It just came out on Wednesday, featuring him and Wesley Snipes. And it's a serious role for Kevin, but it is like, it's uncomfortably close to, some incidents that happened with him back in the day where something goes wrong in Vegas and some people try to blackmail him, and it's not from there. And yeah, it's uncomfortable because of how familiar it feels, but you'll be at the edge of your seat the whole time. It's only 3.5 hours. It's 7 episodes, but it's dope, really dope.
Is it a one and done, and I'm not trying to spoil anything, or do you think there could be room for more seasons?
No, it's billed as a limited series. It is.
Got you. Is part of it set in Philly?
It is set. The whole thing is set in Philly.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. I mean, every bus depot.
It starts in Vegas, but then most of it takes place in Philly. Yeah.
That's why I asked. And Philly has been going hard with the ads all over the city. So yeah, man, that's the plan. I'm always laugh because I'm usually 2 years late to a series, but I've been binging on Succession, and I've been enjoying that one a lot on HBO.
Oh man, yeah, I'm fully caught up. That show is dope. We are definitely in the golden age of TV, man. I don't think it's ever been better, which is amazing. So
yeah, you don't. I mean, sometimes you do, but you don't have to wait week to week. I mean, that whole concept of binging, especially this time of year when it gets cold and you don't want to run around as much. I mean, that just is a pleasure that did not exist when 10 years ago beyond. In my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Before we get into the music of the week, how dope was it to have Joel Ortiz last week?
Man, I called you, or you called me right after we got off the phone with Joel, or got off of video chat, and that one felt so good. I've spoken to Joel a few times over the last 10, 12 years, but I love it when an interview is the best part of your day. And that's no reflection of having a bad day. That's just a reflection of how much I enjoyed that conversation and what a great place Joel Ortiz is with his music and with his life.
Yeah, and I just love the honesty, man. I think the reason why you and I love the artists we do is that they're really coming from an authentic place. You can tell in his music and just hearing him talk that what he says is real. He's really giving you an inside look into his life, and that's the case with Skyzoo and Evidence and Kendrick and Cole and a lot of these guys, man.
Nas, yeah.
Not so it's great.
You asked me after the Breakfast Champs, or excuse the Drink Champs with Kanye, did it make me look at Donda differently? And I think the hip hop interview is often endangered. I mean, I think so. That's why so many artists at the top just flat out don't do press or might do one or two interviews. But what I've loved, and one of the reasons why I've loved speaking to artists and many of whom, I consider to be, inspirations and influences and is when an interview makes you appreciate the music more. Years before Run the Jewels, I loved watching Killer Mike speak. Killer Mike could always make me go cop his album and buy it, and it was great to watch the rest of the world catch up to that. I think that's true of David Banner. I think that's true of, it is true of Kanye, but Joel, that conversation has made me, that's the most listened to album of the last week for me, The Autograph, Joel's new one. And, just that perspective and all the insight that he shared made me appreciate what he's working on artistically so much more.
Word. And again, shout out to Mellow Music Group, for giving artists like that a platform. One of my albums of this week has been the Blacklight album by Apollo Brown and Stalley. And again, just like another really, really dope project, and so actually a good segue into this week, because a lot of albums have been recognized, a lot of music was recognized. It was the announcement of the Grammy nominations for the 2022 Grammy Awards. And, as usual, it was a mixed bag. I think that we got a lot of hope last year because you had credible projects like Royce's Allegory and, Freddie Gibbs and Alchemist and Nas, being recognized. But it's always been kind of like a love-hate thing with the Grammys. It is by far the most esteemed music award you can receive, but it's not been a great kind or legitimate category for rap, especially over the decades. So announcements came out, and the first thing I think you and I saw was that one of our biggest fears, because of the timing of this release, was that it would be ignored, and that happened. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken about it a couple times in this podcast in anticipation and hope, but Busta Rhymes' Extinction Level Event 2, I think it's called The Wrath of God, was snubbed. No awards, but certainly a huge omission in Best Rap Album of the Year. And, that album was a few weeks past being included for 2020. And you have contended, and I very largely agree that there has not been a better album within eligibility this year than that one. And to watch Busta get snubbed after, I mean, with some artists, you can always make the case that they're not on the Grammys radar, but Busta Rhymes just tore down the VMAs in September. I mean, one of our best stories of the year was watching him after never winning a VMA, just lighting that stage up, at the Barclays. And now to see the Grammys fronting on him, really makes me upset, and I haven't seen Busta address it, but I would imagine he and his team Empire, who were responsible for 2 of the nominations last year in the category, they have to be really, really upset and disappointed.
Yeah, man, I just went and saw Dave Chappelle, the screening of his documentary at the Barclays on Monday, and he had special guests, a lot of musical guests. He had her come out, she did a set, she played drums, she played guitar, she killed it. And then he had Rakim come out, and Rod just tore the house down. He had Fat Joe come out, and Fat Joe had everybody going crazy. But then he ended it with Busta. And when Busta Rhymes came out, it was a whole different energy in that place. It went from kind of sleepy with her to full on raucous, building, shaking kind of energy. That's what he brings to the table. And that's what he brought to the album, from it just built the momentum and, his changing of flows and how cohesive the sound was, and, bringing in Rakim and having Pete Rock on the track. And it was just, to me, a masterful album, a display of all of his talents coming together, unlike any other project that he's had before. And that's not disparaging those projects at all. It's just a testament to the greatness of this one. So I can understand if it didn't win, but for it not to receive a single nomination, to me says that someone's out of touch. And part of it might be the fact that it was an independent release. And, I do know that even though the politics are clearing up a little bit within the Grammys, it's still, it's still a process and you still need that machine behind you. So I think that could have been part of what, was the problem with Busta, but also the timing. A lot of times this happens, which is why we talked about it in December of last year. When you come in right past that window,
Yeah.
it's out of sight, out of mind, man, unless you can keep the projects, right in front of people.
Yeah, I mean, I often think that so many year-end lists in the media are so bottom heavy. People forget what comes out in January and February. And on one hand, those are great months for an artist to drop because there's not a lot else out there. And I find that it's cold and people are really, they're not competing with other life events. But at the same time, memories are short. And yeah, I think I have another theory too, that with 2020's nominations, Nas got his first Grammy for King's Disease. But you also in that same category had Royce the 5'9" with Allegory get his first nomination. You had Freddie Gibbs and Alchemist sharing the album Alfredo get their first nominations respectively. Jay Electronica with his album, which isn't credited to Jay-Z, but we know that Jay had a heavy presence in that. And then you had D Smoke as well. So last year felt like a changing of the stakes where independent hip hop might get its recognition. Up until that point, short of Rock Nation artists like Jay-Z and Rhapsody, you hadn't seen indies really recognized. You saw De La Soul get a look in 2017 for their Anonymous Nobody album, which was a great look. We did a story on it for AFH. They did not win. But for years and years, major labels have controlled the Grammys in the rap category. And we started to see that change. And like I said, Busta, same label, same movement as D Smoke and as Gibbs and Alchemist. So I thought, man, they're surely going to see this. They're surely going to hear this. But I have another thought, with 2020's nominations, I don't think they knew if the Grammys would be in person. I thought that it might be anticipating a virtual year and the kind of event where, okay, let's give some of the underdogs their flowers. But now that we're back to life as we know it, quote unquote, here we are going right back to the people that look good and feel good on television.
Yeah, I agree. Like, there's definitely that set of politics involved. And, we're going to get into that in a minute with the expansion of the categories where, they definitely nominate people that they think will bring, a large set of eyeballs to the telecast and also with the hope they'll perform. It's even if it's not a direct quid pro quo, it's definitely kind of a wink and a nod kind of approach, of getting people out to these award shows. So yeah, that's a great observation. I think that could be part of it too.
And Busta's not the only snub to me. He's by far the biggest. And I mean, would you say that this is the biggest snub since J. Cole with KOD was not nominated?
Yeah, that is definitely what came to mind because that's the last time I can remember having an album that I truly thought was the best of the year or the best of the period, involved, not even getting a single bit of recognition. But that calls into question the whole theory about independents versus majors because Cole, as we know, has got that backing, has got the machine behind him in a major way. Sometimes it slips through the cracks for the labels too, though. I think that's what happened with The Weeknd last year is that his label just either didn't submit him at all, forgot to, or they didn't campaign. And so even if you are on the big labels, sometimes if they're not, working for you, it's the same result. So I think that might have been the case for KOD, but that was inexplicable. It was one of the biggest albums of the year. I think it might have been commercially the biggest album of the year.
Yeah.
It was critically acclaimed. It had controversy because of the subject matter that touched in like stoking generational wars and, really being connected to what was going on in terms of like drug abuse with Mac Miller's death and Lil Peep, like just, it couldn't have been more relevant. So, I think that is akin to this miss.
Yeah, I mean, I was giantly upset when Rhapsody's Eve was overlooked. I think we were collectively, and AFH was giantly upset when Freddie Gibbs and Madlib's Bandana was completely missed, especially since that one came out through RCA Records. But both of those are kind of interesting because, Rhapsody had been nominated for Layla's Wisdom. So she was clearly on the radar before, and I guess it feels different when an artist, gets the recognition for one thing and not the other. We can argue that through the history of time. Gibbs gets it with, Alfredo, which I contend is not as good of an album as Bandana. That could be apples to oranges. Certainly respect to Alchemist, one of my favorite producers, but comparatively, I thought Bandana was the better album. Royce gets ignored for Book of Ryan, but gets the nomination for Allegory, which feels good. Whether you're rooting for him or not to win, it feels good to watch an independent artist like Royce, who's been around forever, get the look. This year, with that in mind, I thought, other snubs, not to the magnitude of Busta. There's two big ones. And one is Benny the Butcher for Burden of Proof. And like Busta, that album came out just beyond eligibility in 2020, I believe in October. I think it is the most Grammy savvy record by Benny. I would put it in Benny's top 3 albums. It might not be his best. I might go Tana Talk 3 with that one, or Plugs I Met 1. But this album, especially when you look at Hit Boy already winning last year with Nas, it's what the Grammys want. They gave Pusha T a nod previously, and completely overlooked. And, Griselda has spent some time, the 3 of them, Westside Gun, Conway the Machine, and Benny, have all spoken about this is a target of theirs. They want Grammy recognition. They want to crack the mainstream. And you and I have spent a lot of time this year speaking on this podcast and on the site about how Griselda continues to level up. Their stock continues to rise. 2 of the 3 guys are on Kanye's album. The Grammys missed a boat, especially as they're looking for legitimacy in rap. And they really missed it with Benny and arguably Gun.
That one's a head scratcher for me because it's such an easy win, right? Yeah. So, you get the benefit of them being technically independent artists, but these guys have been attached to Eminem. They're attached to Jay-Z. Benny has Lil Wayne and Big Sean, major artists on this album.
Rick Ross,
yeah. You've made the point that this sounded like a major label album. He just got signed to Def Jam. Now, granted, that was probably after the nomination period, but still, the rumblings around Benny are huge. And so it would have been really easy to establish their cred to nominate Benny, So yeah, that's a big miss. That's a really big miss. I think even bigger than Gun, because to me, Westside Gun keeps it the same speed in terms of really just on that underground, bubbling kind of level. He loves and stays in that lane. But Benny, you can see, is moving toward that major label status. And so this would have been a great time to hook in and say, okay, cool. We were there in the beginning, quote unquote, and supported this and recognized this artistic merit. So.
Which they've done. I mean, the Grammys can tap themselves on the shoulder for giving Kanye West a lot of love early in his career, which we'll talk about. Lupe Fiasco, the same way. They missed the boat with that. And then what I'm personally angry with is Evidence, with the Unlearning album. You mentioned the labels not submitting and some of that. In my opinion, the Grammys have artists out here selling tickets to get on stage for their own show. Evidence and Rhymesayers were 2 of the entities I saw publicly submitting that album for Grammy consideration. I have said, in terms of 2021, that remains my opinion of best album. And Evidence, well, we sometimes have this myth that the underground is ignored. I don't consider Evidence an underground artist, and I don't consider Rhymesayers Entertainment an underground label. 2 times since 2008, Atmosphere has cracked the top 10 of the pop charts, not the rap charts, the pop charts. That's something that Griselda has not done. Evidence has won a Grammy previously by virtue of his work on Kanye West College Dropout. These are people and Dilated Peoples, made noise for 15 years, had hits on the radio, licensed to video games and film. These are not strangers to the Recording Academy. And we make all of this talk about how we're going to make hip hop better. In terms of its recognition and representation, they really missed the boat with that one. Because I think, again, that's an album where you can truly show that you're tuned into the culture, even with its recognition, even if it doesn't win. And I was really disappointed to see that not get included as well.
Yeah, I agree, man. That is definitely one of my top 3 albums of the year. I don't even know, but if the eligibility period is, if we're just talking about eligibility period, I still think I put Buster first.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, like J. Cole and Evidence are neck and neck for me for being the best albums, after that. But to your point, it's a really interesting thing. What does underground mean now? It used to mean, didn't have radio play and didn't have the same kind of commercial success as things. But now in the streaming era, there's such a huge divergence between what's happening on Spotify and the streaming services versus what's happening on radio. It's a disconnect, and it's one that we know is created by record labels spending a ton of money to keep certain things in the spotlight and not other things. But and yes, there's manipulation of streaming services to some degree too, but for the most part, it's much more democratic. And you see these artists having success on streaming services that put them in a tier that's way beyond underground. So I agree. There are some missteps. The other thing that I think was out of touch is the placement of certain artists. There are artists like Doja Cat is in the best melodic rap category, which that was, I couldn't believe that. Like Doja Cat, I don't know how I would describe her as almost like pop music. I wouldn't call it hip hop at all. Certainly not melodic rap. Another one that you thought was miscategorized was Lil Nas X. That one I'll push back on. I think that Lil Nas X's album has lots of different genres on it, but there are definitely some rap songs on his album, and he definitely has some rap in his music. Industry Baby, I think, is a rap song with Jack Harlow.
Yeah, I feel you on that. And I think, I listened to some Doja Cat this morning. I met her, oddly enough, at the Rhyme Sayers Soundset in 2019. And I watched her live show, and it was really remarkable. And that woman deserves props. I agree with you. There is a little bit of rap, I would say as much as Lil Nas X, but again, these aren't albums that, I've listened to Lil Nas X a few times, Montero, but I haven't done a deep dive into Doja's album. But I know she can break into flows. But yeah, I mean, those are categories. And again, it raises the question that Tyler, the Creator, made in 2020 of, I didn't even make a rap album. This year he did, in my opinion. But the year that he won that award, and he was like, this is kind of racist. Like, this is not you're just doing this because of how I look and how you perceive me. Yeah. And again, I think that's happening a little bit with Doja and Lil Nas X too.
And also the reverse, right? The exclusion of rap artists from pop categories when pop literally means popular. And if you're talking about popular music, there is no more popular genre than rap music. So it's ridiculous not to have that category populated with 2-3 artists from hip hop. That part is crazy for me. Now, so those are the negatives, right? And it's always been a love-hate relationship with the Grammys. On the one hand, Flav said, who gives a fuck about a goddamn Grammy, back in the day. But on the other hand, it is the highest achievement you can have in music. And so people do care. But, so on the positive side, we talked about KOD and J. Cole being snubbed, terribly in 2018, I believe it was. And so now he comes in with 5 nominations. I believe it was 5. So like really, really strong. And, we talked about Nas's King Disease win as possibly a make good for his career. I don't see that as the case with J. Cole with this. I think that Cole put out one of the best albums of the year, and it's being recognized as it should be. But what were your thoughts on that?
I agree with you. I think you just said it all right there. I don't see this as a makeup. I'm sure the Grammys are aware, at least those at the top, that they have snubbed an artist that I looked yesterday, and J. Cole's numbers are staggering. I mean, he has broken the Spotify record before, which I know is a record that keeps being broken, and he did so with KOD. But, I know, and Cole talked about it. You and I spent a podcast recently where you compared him to the Tim Duncan of rap, of what Tim was to the NBA. And Cole doesn't, he's not controversial, not at least in the way the Grammys would like him to be, and it doesn't help their agenda to give a guy like that his props. But I think they realize that they've truly fucked up. And the off season, absolutely, you know, of these albums that, and we'll talk about it, that album deserves to win, not just on an album level too. And one of the things I'll give the Grammys props for is they looked at some of the singles within, and I feel as though they placed those in the correct categories.
Word. All right, so let's get into it, man. Let's talk about the specific nominations, and I'd like to talk about what we think is going to be what we think should be the winner of them. And maybe even if we think there are things that should have been included, we can include those. But actually, let's save that because we're going to have our year-end list coming up soon. So
I like that.
I think we'll do that there. But of those, let's see what our pick is and then what we think the winner would be. Cool.
Got you. Yeah.
All right. So best rap performance. The nominees for that were Baby Keem with Kendrick Lamar, Family Ties, which we were talking about. You know, that's a song that has continued to grow on me. And, you know, although Kendrick's verse got all the attention, Keem's verse just continues to be just what gets me super amped. Cardi B's Up, which was ubiquitous, completely inescapable. And it's like an earworm. Once you hear it, it just won't leave your head. J. Cole featuring 21 Savage and Morade, My Life, a staple on the AFH playlist, probably my favorite song on the album. Drake featuring Future and Young Thug, Way Too Sexy. Megan Thee Stallion, Thought Shit. So first of all, what do you think about the list? Is it representative, do you think, of the current landscape for rap music?
Yeah, I mean, this one's interesting. For best rap performance, it's representative at the top. How about that? Again, this is one, there's not a sleeper on here. Maybe J. Cole is, just in terms of that's not a song that I've heard a lot on radio. But admittedly, this year, I haven't been too tuned into terrestrial radio. Apart from DMX, to your point, the song that I've most heard coming out of cars at red lights and stuff driving by and heard in different places is Family Ties. I mean, that is a massive record. Funny enough, the Cardi joint, and you're in New York and I'm not, I haven't heard that everywhere. I mean, I know when Cardi drops a single, it's a big deal, but that wasn't to the standard of other Cardi records. And I listened after the nominations and I had heard it before, but I didn't realize how that had penetrated culture as much as maybe you had.
Oh man, that's on New York radio all the time. Like literally, I probably hear that song almost every day. I'm surprised Kanye's not on this. Because that album did get a lot of recognition. If you talk about top rap artists or hip hop artists, he definitely, penetrated this year in a major way. So I'm surprised, I could have seen him in there over like Megan Thee Stallion. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I don't even get what they mean by rap performance. If they literally mean delivery of the rap, then, it's kind of a strange category. But I would
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I would say that I can't think of a verse that had more impact this year than Kendrick's verse.
Yeah. The one thing that I think may have been omitted wrongfully is Tyler, the Creator, with Lumberjack. I mean, again, and if you want to interpret performance, his BET Awards performance was one of my favorite this year. And that is my song on that album, on Tyler's. And I think that deserved to be here, but maybe more than Meg, in my opinion. I don't like the Drake song. I don't think you do either. I know that it and I'll say it, I said it then, I'll say it again. To me, that song is very much for the Good Morning America crowd. Like that's a joint that my mom will hear when they cut to commercial.
Wow, you just said the soccer mom crowd. That's crazy. Like, yeah.
No, my mom isn't a soccer mom. Yo.
Well, I mean, you said even older than soccer moms, you're saying? Like, it's for them?
It's like a mixture of that and 11-year-olds on TikTok. Like, it's not, shout out to Certified Lover Boy. That is one of the weakest songs on the album. And I know they released it as a video when the album dropped. But yeah, I mean, to me, that was a disappointment. And Meg has 10 songs better than Thought Shit, in my opinion. But I think the Grammys are really trying to position themselves in the business of Meg, and they're probably a year or two late on it. But yeah, that's my thought. But I know I'm ranting. What do you?
This is the power of programming, right? The reason why record companies spend as much money on radio as they do is that the more you hear a song, the more you start to like it. It's like you're beaten into submission. And so while I don't love the song, I like it much better than I used to. And I hear I can hear it in my head, and like I feel myself singing along to it when it comes on radio now. And it's been just programmed into me.
You talking about Meg?
No, I'm talking about Way Too Sexy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's real interesting. And I'm not a soccer mom. Don't go. Don't.
Nor is my mom. Shout out to my mom. I think
I'm not Good Morning America mom either.
You're a Gayle King mom.
I see.
No, right. So I think you and I disagree a lot, but I think we're probably going to agree on this one. What is the AFH pick, or more specifically, the Reggie pick for this category?
Well, I think we're going to disagree on it because my guess is you're going to say My Life, given that is one of my favorite Cole songs in years. Like, I love that song. But for this one, I'm going to go with Baby Keem and Kendrick. I think Family Ties is such a unique record, and that Kendrick verse is insane. But Keem's verse is great. The beat is great. The video is great. Like, everything about this record is standout to me. But what about you? And the other thing is, as much as I love the Cole and 21 Savage record, it's also kind of a sequel, to a lot. That they did their thing, and this to me sounds like an updated version of that. It's different, but not breaking new ground. Whereas the Keem record just broke all sorts of new ground for me.
Yeah, and a lot gave J. Cole his first Grammy, which was strange. And I agree, that's a good point. No, actually, we do agree. I would be perfectly happy if J. Cole were to win. That, again, is one of the best songs of the year. But I think in this category, again, in my interpretation of rap performance, Keem and Kendrick for Family Ties deserve it. And I'm going to take it one step further. I believe that will be the winner.
Ah, man, I hope it's the winner. I really do. I could see the winner being Cardi B or Drake, though. Kendrick is a Grammy darling. So it'd be cool. Yeah, man, it's a tough one. If I had to make a bet, I would say, yeah, I'm gonna go with Baby Keem and Kendrick. Yeah, I have this thing where right before it's announced, I say what it is, and I just try to put myself in that moment. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Baby Keem and Kendrick.
Sometimes I do that with football. I'll be like, yo, they're gonna run back this punt. And it's happened a few times. It hasn't a few times too. Right. I bet you Kendrick doesn't even show up. I think that's calculated. I think that song is so dope, but I think that Kendrick and Dave, they want to create a moment for Keem, and they want to create a moment for PG Lang and their artists. And yeah, I think we're on the same page with that. So
yeah.
Next category is Best Melodic Rap Performance. So J. Cole gets the nomination for another song. This one is the Little Baby assisted Pride is the Devil. Doja Cat getting that for Need to Know. Lil Nas X and Jack Harlow for Industry Baby. Tyler, the Creator with Youngboy, NBA, and Ty Dolla $ign for What's Your Name. Kanye, The Weeknd, and Lil Baby yet again for Hurricane. What is the AFH pick for you?
Man, this one's easy for me. The AFH pick, what's right for our brand is, J. Cole and Lil Baby, Prize the Devil. I think that song is another one that's grown on me. When I first heard the album, was one of my favorites. I thought that's when the album started to dip in energy. I think we talked about that when we broke down the album. But of these picks, that's the one. I think a sleeper for me is Lil Nas X and Jack Harlow, Industry Baby, because Jack Harlow spits on that, dude raps, the video's great. And I think Lil Nas X's hook is good too. It's very catchy, stays in your head. But I think, yeah, the AFH pick is Prize the Devil. How about you?
I really like what you said about that song, because it wasn't one of my favorites on the album. It's really stood out since you had commissioned, not commissioned, but you had kind of strategized the post years ago that I think in 2020 when J. Cole won his first Grammy, that he used Drake's playbook, his formula. And I look now at the offseason and that song completely belongs in this category. And it's everything, J. Cole is the melodic one in the record. And it's the song's got a lot of mental nutrition in it. Lil Baby is an artist that I'm still figuring out. A lot of people that, I look up to and trust always say like, yo, he's one of the guys, one of the new guys that you really have to listen to. And I know he's not that new at this point. I don't love Baby on that song, but I think that is what I believe deserves to win. In my opinion, what will win, this is Doja Cat's category. That record was massive. And I think they're going to try to find a way to give her props. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, she is also up for Best New Artist, but that's a really stacked category. I see her taking this. It could be, Lil Nas X and Jack Harlow. And shout out to you. You've made me really appreciate Jack. I still think the best song I've ever heard him do is on Static Selector's album, The Joint Time. Yeah. But that's a very good collaboration between him and Nas X.
Yeah, Time and Tyler Hero are both just joints. Yeah, and he killed Eminem's Killer remix too.
Word.
Dude, really, he's got talent. I can't even think of the Doja Cat record. How's it go? How's it go?
You're not gonna get me to do that.
I tried, man. Damn. Oh man, I tried. Okay, well, yeah, man. I actually think this one's gonna go either to Lil Nas X or to Kanye. Mm-hmm. But if I had to pick, I would say Lil Nas X. I think it's gonna go to him.
And are we in agreement? I mean, Kanye loves the light. He's gonna show up, right?
Yeah, he'll show up because I think he wants that album of the year win. This Lil Nas X, the video, I think it's got well over 300 million views. It might have close to 1 billion. It's gigantic. So
yeah,
that kind of impact, that's the kind of thing that I think sways Grammy voters. It's just mere presence. So
the next category.
Go ahead. Best rap song. This one's, I think, really interesting. The diversity is weird. But some cool choices. So you got DMX with Nas and Jay-Z, Bath Salts. What I think is probably the strongest record on the album. I'm actually surprised that X didn't get more recognition here. Yeah. Saweetie with Doja Cat, Best Friends. Family Ties once again with Kim and Kendrick. You got Kanye featuring Jay with Jail. The more I listen to it, maybe my favorite song on that album too. I think it's just incredible. And I have more appreciation for Jay's verse every time I listen to it too.
Agreed.
And then My Life Again with Cole featuring Moray and 21 Savage. This is a really interesting category for me. I think aside from the Saweetie and Doja Cat record, I like all these picks. For me, I would say that, well, it's interesting, for our audience and for the brand, I think it goes to Bath Salts. I think that is the most AFH aligned song in this category. But I could also see it going to Family Ties for AFH or My Life. There's some real bangers here, but I think Bath Salts would be the AFH pick. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this is a category that I'm really happy with any outcome. I mean, shout out to Doja and Saweetie. I understand why that song is there. It's not our audience by any measure. I would like to see it go to DMX on this one. X never won a Grammy. He was nominated 3 times. But one of those artists like Snoop, like Ice Cube, like Nas up until earlier this year that just never got the recognition they deserve. And I think this song wins it, and or should win it. I do think that's where it'll go, because the Grammys want to correct that history. If not, I have a feeling to your point, it either goes to Family Ties or I'm going to say Jail, on this one, which I totally agree with what you said, has become probably my favorite song on Donda. And I like the chemistry between Ye and Jay on that song. And it's a different type of chemistry as much as anything short of Otis. They just really, it does feel like a homecoming record to, take a page from Jay's verse on that. But yeah, and I really don't see Best Friends winning. So I think this is one of those feel good categories regardless, because I'd be perfectly happy if J. Cole were to get it as well.
Yeah, I think the Grammy is going to go to Keem again and Kendrick. I think that it's long enough after DMX's death that the sentimentality and nostalgia associated with it is going to wane a little bit, and people are just going to fall back to whatever record they think has the most impact and feels the coolest for them. And I think it's going to be Family Ties. That's my personal belief.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it to me depends on rap performance. And I know we've seen that where the same song wins Song of the Year and Record of the Year. And we're like, why are there these two categories? I see Family Ties winning either this or rap performance. I don't see it win both. If Bath Salts were to win, do you see members of X's family? Do you see Swizz Beatz? Or do you see Nas and Jay going up there together?
I see Y and D and Swizz going up there, and I think it's going to be a gigantic, like 15-person acceptance. I think,
like Biggie winning the Source Award.
Yeah. I think Swizz will speak, and I think Y and D, and that'll be it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would like it. And that song, I mean, you and I spent a whole podcast, a large chunk of it talking about it, but it's, the world first heard it in 2017. It's got a great history to it. If it's not my favorite on Exodus, it's only after the Griselda joint, Hood Blues. But it's a moment, and I'm in some ways, and that's a perfect setup to the next category. In some ways, I'm relieved that Exodus wasn't put for Best Rap Album. I mean, shout out to DMX, shout out to Swizz, shout out to all those involved. I think that album had a nice moment in the spring following the unfortunate passing of DMX. I don't think that album deserved to be considered as Best Rap Album, in my opinion. And those may seem like bold words. I think there's times in the past where X 100% deserved recognition that he didn't get. But this time,
I think you're about to catch a beating in the comment section.
You think so? No,
yeah,
man,
you get one whooping a week, and I think it's going to be over this one this time.
Man, I got one the other day for asking AZ a question, and I asked him if he felt as though he was an influence to Eminem, and a guy came in there and called me devilish and all that. Man, oh man, never a dull moment anymore. But Best Rap Album, and this is the category.
Wait, what was the criticism? Like, I don't. What was the criticism?
The criticism was that is if I was trying to make it about a white man. When if you watch the interview and you were there, I'm asking AZ, who I've known for a number of years and supported in many ways. I'm asking him if he ever had a chance to have Eminem tell him what an influence he was to Eminem, especially for those that listen to M's first album, Infinite.
Right. The person thought you were asking if Eminem was an influence to AZ.
Thought I was being mad devilish, man.
Okay. Okay. I disagree. I do think we'll go through the nominees first, but I think that I'm going to tell you, I think that X belonged on this list.
Okay. So the nominees, and this is the category that I look for first, when these are announced every year. J. Cole, The Off Season, Nas's King Disease 2, and shout out to Hit Boy producing it all. Drake's Certified Lover Boy, Kanye West Donda, Tyler the Creator's Call Me If You Get Lost. That's the big five.
Yeah, so for me, this could have gone, Exodus could have gone in there for Tyler or Drake. I understand, I think the politics of why, because both are, bigger draws, they want them to perform and stuff like that. But in terms of quality of the album, it's not by any means a perfect album, but I think there are 5 or 6 really strong joints on it. And in this day and time, that's a very strong album. You know, it wasn't overly long, had great guests. The production was dope. You know, it was diversity. You know, the joint with like Snoop is completely different than Bath Salts. It's completely
Yeah.
different than and the last song, you know, where he's talking to his son, is one of the most powerful DMX records ever. So I think there's a lot of merit to this album that could have earned it a spot on this list over some of those albums, which are I kind of think throwaway albums. I don't think people are going to be talking about Certified Lover Boy in 3 or 4 years. I don't think they're going to be talking about the Tyler album in 3 or 4 years either. So I think there's a powerful argument for Exodus to be on this list.
And make no mistake, I mean, I know we're joking with each other. I 100% agree with what you just said, especially about Drake. And I think Exodus is as, if not far more deserving, not far more deserving to be there than Certified Lover Boy. But I think between those two, I'm disappointed that it's not Busta, not Benny, and not Evidence. Those belong there.
I agree with that.
And you know, the Tyler album is funny to me because I listened to it and I like it. It was in a lot of ways Tyler coming back to rap. It's framed as a Gangsta Grills. I think your point's a good one. There's 4 or 5 really good, near great songs on there. And that is enough sometimes in this day and age to get that look, provided you make enough noise around it. But yeah, I mean, this category is a funny one to me. To me, the real competitors are J. Cole and Kanye. And to me, J. Cole deserves to win it definitively. Of these nominees, I think that it could likely go to Kanye. I would love to see it go to J. Cole, to your point at the top of give this man his props. And unlike, I think no matter how much you like Nas, you can agree that King's Disease 1 is not his greatest album of all time. It's up there. And you and I dedicated a whole podcast to that. But J. Cole's Offseason is among his best works. And this is not a retroactive Grammy. This is one competing entirely on its own merits. You agree?
I agree. I think this is the best. Cole's album is the best album in the category for sure. And it would have been a strong contender with Busta and Evidence and any other project. So I agree with that wholeheartedly. In terms of who I think will win, man, it's a tough one. And also I'll say Nas, King's Disease too. I agree with you on that too. That this is a stronger album than King's Disease. In any other year. This would probably be my number 2 album on this in this category. I don't know. It's a really great album, but I think the Grammy is going to go to Donda. I think it's Donda's year. I think Kanye has kept himself in the public eye masterfully. Anyone, no one alive who listens to music is unaware that Donda is out. Given all the things he did for it. So. I think that's going to pay off for Kanye, and I think he's going to get the Grammy. And he's also won, a ton of like best rock album Grammys. He's won like 3, right? 3 already. So
yeah, it seems like his category. To your point, and I agree with you on Nas. I think that after I said definitively cool, Nas is my number 2 as a rap pick. I can't see that happening. I mean, it just would be crazy given the way the Grammys seem to ping pong around to give it to him back-to-back years for album sequels. I am disappointed that the Nas and Lauryn Hill collaboration wasn't in best rap songs. I'm sure the Grammys are good and afraid of Lauryn Hill.
Yeah.
And her, thoughts and opinions, especially as it pertains to that verse. But to me, that was a snub. And it was great to see Bath Salts on one hand, because it's not shopped as a single, nor was Nobody, but those were great records. And I have to imagine the Grammys are so distraught that here you have Drake and Kanye West making peace in the name of liberating, freeing Larry Hoover and Jay Prince around them. And they don't get that soap opera moment of these two guys with all of these years of turmoil and rivalry and beef sitting, competing for the same award. They lost that. And, as we kind of take shots at...
I don't know that I agree with that. Give it time, man. The Larry Hoover thing's happening, December 7th? You got another almost 2 months. You got more than 2 months between that and the Grammys, and Drake and Kanye have shown that they're their pieces on again, off again. It could easily be off again by the time February rolls around.
It could, but I don't think so. And I laugh because I think that sometimes they want, to create these moments. And we're going to talk about in the album of the year category another moment that I think they're trying to create. But yeah, I would love to see J. Cole get his props for this one. And one of the things too is winning a Grammy, even for an artist like J. Cole, can push you up another level. And artists that have won them and artists that have been nominated and missed them say that it can create better sponsorship, better licensing, better touring. It puts you in different rooms. And no matter what you feel about the trophy itself, J. Cole's been doing it. He's really been doing it since 2014 Forest Hills Drive, on a really high level. And some could say since Born Sinner, and some could say since his mixtapes. But I want him certified as one of rap superstars, one of hip hop superstars, especially in a year where we've watched J. Cole question his own place compared to the Kendricks and the Drakes.
I agree. He deserves it, but I think it's highly, highly unlikely that he gets it. I think he's probably gonna end up with the least amount of votes in the category. Maybe second to Tyler. But I think Kanye's popularity, Drake's popularity, Nas's, status, all kind of gives them the edge with the Grammy voters. And I'm not sure that people are really listening to the projects like that. I think if they did, Cole's work speaks for itself, but I just don't have that faith.
Yeah, I mean, neither you nor I vote for the Grammys. I've met people in my life that do, and they are not the people that listen to 100 plus albums a year. They're the people often that I look at trying to get into their own bigger rooms, and that's not true of everyone by any measure. But I'm always disappointed, and I was last year with Royce, who I was pulling for, and I'm like, did you really hear the album? Anyway. But this year there is representation at the top for album of the year. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so Kanye was nominated for album of the year for Donda, and it's really interesting how it unfolded. First of all, it was a last minute ad. You'd already written the piece, and then I think it came out, like an hour or so after the initial nominations, that they were expanding the category. They're expanding the big four. So that's album of the year, I think best song, best new artist, and record of the year. And they're going from 8 nominees to 10. Now, this is an expansion from 5 from just a few years ago. And it follows other award shows like the Oscars. Done this, too. And, the what the Grammys said about it is that, and this is a quote, it was to make room for more music, more artists, and more genres, and to embrace the spirit of inclusion. Now, for me, I think that it's strategic and a little bit cynical in that they're trying to get more blockbuster artists in, one, to draw them to the show, because it definitely helps the ratings to have the shots of people in the audience, having them do like acceptance speeches if they do win. But it also is a good way to get people to perform. If they think there's a possibility of them winning, then they'll perform, and so that also ups the ante for the show too. It's and it gets the audience to tune in because they're seeing their favorite artists being nominated, and they think they have a chance to see them win and perform and all that other stuff. I don't think it increases the likelihood that they're actually going to win, because what we just said, like, it's still the same body of people voting, and they have, often narrow taste, narrow exposure, and vote and go with what they know, and often who looks like them. And so I don't think that it's gonna. And another thing is, so the 2 artists who came in, and they say that this is the number 9 and number 10 most voted amongst the nominees, it was Kanye West and Taylor Swift. Now, we all know the history those two have had over the last 13 years or so, Kanye going up and taking her VMA from her and telling the audience that Beyonce, I was in the building, by the way, that night.
Wow.
And I got to tell you that when it happened, there were chuckles in the room and stuff like that, smattering of like gas, but nothing like crazy. And it wasn't until Kanye went on for another award and he was booed loudly that you really understood the impact, but it had gone crazy like on social media and stuff like that, and you could see it just unfolding real time. It was crazy, and who knew the impact it was going to have on his career for the next 4 or 5 years. Like really, it became crushing for him. It was almost like being canceled before cancel culture happened. But and then they kind of made amends, but then Kanye put her naked body, in the famous video, and had the line about her, making her famous and stuff.
Yeah.
And then they had the back and forth with Beyonce and all. With Kim, it was a lot. So you can't tell me that it seems like a very strange, fortunate coincidence for them that it would be Kanye and Taylor Swift that would be the last two added. I'll leave it at that. I guess coincidences happen for sure, but that one is very, very suspect for me. But so the two of them are in for their albums, Donda, and I think Taylor Swift is Evermore. And then the other nominees are Tony Bennett and Lady Gaga for Love for Sale. John Batiste, who I hadn't heard of, but I guess is the musical director for Late Night with Stephen Colbert. His album is We Are. Justin Bieber's Justice. Doja Cat, Planet Her. Billie Eilish, Happier Than Ever. Her, Back of My Mind. Lil Nas X, Montero. And Olivia Rodrigo, Sour. So those are the nominees. Out of those, like I think that, so the typical Grammy win would go to Tony Bennett and Lady Gaga. So Tony Bennett is, I don't know if you know, but is suffering from dementia and really has no more short-term memory. He doesn't remember anything that happens during the day, but he has a perfect recall for music. So he just had his last tour. It was with Gaga, and you can easily see that is going to be, that could be the like sentimental favorite that happens in the Grammys, right? Aside from that, Billie Eilish is a go-to also for the Grammys, but her album, especially compared to past performances, has definitely fizzled. It wasn't the success that she's had in the past. I think personally that the two strongest contenders are Lil Nas X and Donda, and I would probably give it to Lil Nas X. I think from me texting you and sending you songs of the week, that's one of my favorite albums of the year. I was just blown away by the diversity of it. He's got alternative rock, he's got like hip hop, he's got melodic rap, he's got great songs. So I just think it's an incredible work, and he's just such a marketing genius. He rivals Kanye in his ability to create controversy and keep himself in the public eye. But what's your take on the category?
Yeah, initially I had thought Lil Nas X too, and I could see Donda happening. This is a category that Kanye has never won. He was 3 times nominated, the first artist in history to be so for his first 3 albums. College Dropout, Late Registration, and Graduation, the trio, if you will, never won. A hip hop album has not won since 2004 with Outkast's Speaker Box, The Love Below double album.
And we've had some strong potentials too, right? We had To Pimp a Butterfly and Damn, which had won the Pulitzer, right? So there's
I mean, we've had some before and it hasn't happened. I don't know that this is the one for Kanye. I mean, on one hand, you're right. Like, it has absolutely, I don't think there's an album that's come out this year that has made more mass awareness noise than Kanye. I mean, with the pushbacks, with the stadium tour, with the stadium previews, with what he and Kim are going through in the tabloids. It is just an event scale album. But also, I didn't realize that on Tony Bennett. And that album historically is the one that could win too, and I don't know if Tony Bennett's ever won album of the year. I would venture maybe not.
I think he might have. He did a covers album a couple years ago. I think he got it for that. It's possible, but he definitely got recognition.
That, I mean, that could feel good, and it's really who the Grammys decide their audience is. Are they trying to be new and edgy, and that would be Lil Nas X, or are they trying to go, legacy, which would be Tony and Gaga. I 100% agree with you on, Billie Eilish's album is not the one. I don't think Taylor Swift's album is the one, and I've spoken to a lot of people that are fans of hers, and she's wavered a little bit. I heard a lot of people be shocked that Justin Bieber would be considered for this. I think Doja Cat has some strong singles, but I don't think this is her category either. Her made a dope album, and I feel that her gets lost in the sauce of 10 nominees in this. But I do think you're right. I think we're saying the same thing. I would venture to bet I'm going to take Kanye off the table this time. It goes to Lady Gaga and Tony Bennett, or Lil Nas X.
Yeah, if Kanye did win, it's the point we said about Nas last year, and this wouldn't, I think, necessarily be for Donda. I think the three albums that were nominated before, College Dropout, Late Registration, and Graduation, were better albums. I think that in terms of impact, 808s and Heartbreak and My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy should have been nominated for Album of the Year. I think My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy should have gotten Album of the Year. I think it's the album of Kanye's career and one of the most important ever. But 808 and Heartbreaks changed the sound of hip hop for the last 12, 13 years. So that one, you could say has equal impact. He's got 75 nominations, in the past, which is just mind blowing, 22 wins. So I could see this as being kind of a lifetime achievement award kind of album of the year, which is what most album of the year awards tend to be. I could see that. But even that, it's tough, man, when you're going against darlings like Lady Gaga and Tony Bennett. So yeah. So I do think Kanye's probably, I think Lil Nas X, even though it's a better album, I think he's early in his career, and Kanye would get the edge on him because of his achievements. So I think it'll probably be between Lady Gaga, Tony Bennett, and Kanye, but we'll see. He wants it. He wants it more than most. So it'd be really interesting if he did win it.
Yeah, I mean, if he were to win it too, I tend to disagree. I think that he and Drake are headed to a true armistice, and we won't see this. I see them working together again, making a massive record together. We saw Drake and Meek Mill, tie the olive branch, and that it's Kanye's way. But this would be a one-up on Drake. If Drake is the biggest artist of his timeline and kind of took the torch from Ye, for Ye to get an album of the year before Drake means something. And he gets it before Jay-Z, which, Jay arguably deserved it with Blueprint, arguably deserved it with Black Album. It's a statement, and it brings Kanye back into the conversation in a big way. And I think that Donda is intended to represent that. It's a feel-good dedication to his mother. There's a lot of positive themes on the album. And Ye would very much, I think, feel as though he got a huge chip off of his shoulder in terms of status with a win like this.
Yeah, no one is talking about Certified Lover Boy or any other album, for that matter, 6 months after it dropped, or 4 or 5 months after it dropped, whatever it's been. And people have been talking about Donda nonstop, and that is because of Kanye. So we had the fits and starts of the release dates and the pump fakes with, okay, I'm going to do this big stadium release party. It's going to be a big spectacle. Album's coming out, then the album doesn't come out, right? And then he said, okay, I'm gonna do it in 2 weeks, and same thing, so he had that. Drink Champs, the feud with Drake, now this reconciliation and the Larry Hoover event that's going to happen December 7th is going to keep it in people's minds during the actual voting period. The Drink Champs interview and how viral it went is going to do the same. And then yesterday, or on Thanksgiving, he released his prayer, which is just 5 minutes of visuals. He's not shown in it, but it's him confessing his biggest sins, and he is not holding back anything. He talks about his relationship with alcohol and how his drinking has led to him, expressing his anger too quickly and, really affected his relationships with family, especially Kim. talks about his anger. He talks about his ego and how it is unchecked and it goes beyond just motivating him to like a place that's irrational. He talks about his mental illness episodes and how, you know, he has had manic moments and has done so in the past and, you know, gotten stabilized on meds, but not taking his meds, and it's led to more family problems. He talks about the wearing the red hat and the impact that, that had on the family and endangering, his wife literally thinking it was endangering him and the family. He talks about his religion and how he wears that on his sleeve and in a way that is lording it over people, pun intended. And he talks about spending money. He just goes on about um, such deep and candid things with just like unbridled honesty. It was wild. Did you check it out? Did you listen to it?
No, I haven't yet, but
Yeah.
I'm eager to peep it, and I'm going to right after this.
Yeah, no, it is. It's mind blowing. But again, it's just a testament of how Kanye is able to always stay at the top of the news cycle. I've said for a long time, there's no one better except for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Him and Kim are like neck and neck too, but Kanye is like a master at it, and so I think that that's going to help him with this voting process.
I just looked at those 3 times he was up for it in the past and didn't win, the first 3. He lost 2 times to legacy artists. Once was Ray Charles, which was the year he competed against with College Dropout. And it's funny, when you think of, Gold Digger and the subtext there. And the other time he lost to U2, which I wouldn't put as a legacy artist, especially in the early or mid 2000s. They've been around a while, but it's not like Tony Bennett. And the other time was Herbie Hancock, which is to me that, because Herbie's been around, since the 50s making music, and they wanted to give him his flowers. And if Ye loses to Lady Gaga and Tony Bennett, there's something interesting there if he feels that he's always getting the snub for the feel-good winner.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So we're coming to the end of November, and unbeknownst to me, you dropped this in, but November was National Hip Hop Month. Now, did you hear anything about this beyond the story that you read about it? Was there anything in recognition of National Hip Hop Month?
Not at the political level. Shout out to DJ Premier, who's been posting hip hop factoids on his IG all month, and Rock the Bells. Our homies over there have been doing nuggets of history. But from, I haven't heard Joe Biden say anything. I haven't heard Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, or any other members of Congress come forward. Have you?
No, I haven't heard anything about it. I'm glad that those outlets on IG did, but it makes me wonder, what does it even mean to be National Hip Hop Month? We have Black Music Month in June. And that is celebrated a little bit. It's mostly corporate sponsors, like, getting behind it. I don't see a ton of like media coverage and stuff like that. But what do you think should be done for National Hip Hop Month? How should it be celebrated?
I'd like to see more of on a grander scale of what we've seen. I thought it was really dope when Q-Tip curated the Kennedy Center, and they were having all of those amazing concerts there from like Grandmaster Caz and Pharoah Monch and J Period, and a lot of people that we cover on the daily, we're going down and rocking that. I'd like to see more of that sort of recognition, maybe something on PBS or NPR, but we've got to find a way to take hip hop and its proper history, not its artificial sweetener history, and give it to the world using federal programs and dollars. That's just my opinion, and maybe that's not specific enough. But what about you?
I think well, it all comes from media coverage, but I think there have to be events that garner that coverage. And so I think it could be a couple of things. One, there should be documentaries kind of capturing the culture. But then 2, and I just thought of this, there should be festivals. And I think it would be cool to do a festival every weekend for 4 weeks, capturing the 4 different decades of hip hop, 4 and change, so, really celebrating the older artists and, getting some money in their pockets, but, showing that like what that really means. And then also, and then going to the 90s and the O's and then current. I think something like that could have real impact, having it in different cities. Maybe the first is in New York, then you have LA, and then you have like Detroit or Chicago, and then you end up in Atlanta. Something like that I think could be really cool to showcase the diversity of hip hop in terms of eras, but also geographies and genres.
I like that a lot. And also, I mean, the clear thing is we got to make it about the four elements. You got to use this opportunity to show love to the graph writers and the breakers, as well as, MCs and DJs. Philly right now has some amazing graffiti going on, and I'd love to see that celebrated. A lot of cities have created programs to hire graph writers or use choreographers, like do that with federal dollars since we're spending it on everything else. And absolutely, I think you're right that the traveling show that celebrates the history, the regional styles across those elements, but also, all four parts of it. Because if it's hip hop, it's got to be hip hop. And I know we spend most of our time talking about the music, but the other elements are things that got us here and kept us here.
Yeah, and there could be a cool like March on Washington, like get behind a cause and have that, have a big day celebrating that with speeches, but talking about, the impact that hip hop has had on the world, and having everyone from like a Killer Mike and a Bun B to an Obama who very much acknowledged like the impact that it had on his presidency, like really make it something that is, embracing of the cultural movement that hip hop has been for the last 50 years.
Yeah, man. Yeah, well, I mean, we do it every day, and shout out to those that do, and people making the history out there properly told and giving our heroes their flowers.
Yeah, yeah. So, before we close, I think we got to acknowledge one of the bigger tragedies we've had in a while. Death is always is terrible. We've had a lot of deaths over the last several months, most of them being due to health issues, and so that's terrible. It also is like really kind of hits home though when it's violence. And fortunately, we've had a slowing of violent hip hop deaths. I mean, that's the only deaths we experienced early in hip hop's trajectory was from violence, because with the exception of Eazy-E, because the artists were so young, so you weren't getting those health-related deaths. But now as hip hop becomes middle-aged, and the artists are too, you're seeing more health things. But we lost Young Dolph a little over a week ago, and I know that personally hit you very hard because of your connection with his label. But you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I can't stand on here in front like I've been a Young Dolph music fan for a number of years. Actually, and I think we do this a lot. There's a lot of music that we talk about in this podcast and on the site, but there's more than that too. And you really made me appreciate his artistic merits over the last 3 or 4 years. But I had done some press materials, creating bios for the entire PRE roster. Not Dolph. I never met Dolph, but I deal with his partners and all of those artists. And I work very closely with a lot of people in the business that were very close with Dolph. And this one stung. I was in, he was shot in Makeda's Cookies, which has 2 locations in Memphis. And on Martin Luther King Jr. Day this year, I happened to be in Memphis. And my girlfriend and I supported the other location of that, which is just steps away from the Lorraine Hotel. And to find out that Dolph was there buying cookies for a charity event where he was gunned down was startling. Dolph is very close in age to me. Him and Nipsey were both guys in their 30s, not guys in their 20s or their teens that were killed. It's just sickening and sad. And it definitely put a really, really heavy cloud on a year that's already been pretty rough for the hip hop community. But I hope that, we talk about the Grammys. I hope that the Grammys give somebody like Dolph, along with all the other hip hop artists we've lost this year, their flowers, because this was an artist who was gold and platinum certified, created an opportunity. Most of the artists on PRE are from Memphis. Key Glock probably being the biggest, but there's a whole lot of talent there. And he really went and found people with his same upbringing, same environment, same circumstances, and put them in a positive light. And just like Nipsey, it is so sad to see this be the end of the story.
Yeah, I think that's what hit me the hardest is seeing these young Black entrepreneurs who are building empires outside of hip hop, real estate and, really bringing in economic empowerment to the neighborhoods where they grew up. There's a lot of talk about buying back the block, but very few artists were attempting to do that. He and Nipsey both were doing that on a pretty large scale. And it just reminds me of what Kanye was saying in his Drink Champs interview about how, and this was with respect to incarceration, how we're taking an entire generation of leaders off the streets, and that goes for their own families, but as an example for others to follow in building that kind of wealth. And it's just really, really tough, man. And I know he had violent encounters in the past, and that was a part of what he was trying to escape, same thing with Nipsey, so it just really saddens me when they're not able to fully break that cycle, and that we're still killing each other despite the things that, that these people represent to the communities. It's a tough thing, I was turned on to Dolph by Charlemagne. Charlemagne, back when he and Budden would do those urine lists and stuff like that, would always mention Young Dolph on the show and things like that. And so I started listening to him and I heard a lot of similarities to Nip. He was kind of like the East Coast Southern version of Nip. And yeah, man, really, really tough, really tough.
And I've seen West Side Gun say that, Dolph was his favorite rapper of the moment. And Vinny Paz from Jedi Mind Tricks said, this is my favorite rapper from the South, of this generation. So even though Dolph, and you had put him on the playlist a few times and we covered him in passing on AFH, very, very legitimate artist. And yeah, RIP big time. And I really feel what you just said.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah. So any new music come out for you?
I would direct anyone on the new music topic to our playlist. You've done a really good job. You mentioned the Stolly and Apollo Brown album, which is in heavy rotation for me right now. Mellow Music Group has had an amazing year with Sky Zoo, Joel, shout out to Larange, shout out to, they just put out, I believe, Homeboy Sandman too, but you cherry picked some really good songs on there. You also went to the Snoop Dogg compilation for Def Jam, The Algorithm, and you grabbed what I think is the dopest moment on it, which is the first song by Redman and Method Man, produced by Battle Cat, and that is on our playlist. And then also there's a joint called Black Illuminati by Freddie Gibbs and Jadakiss. And these guys had worked together before early on in Gibbs's run, but really dope song. And it's supposed to be, from what I've read, what I've heard grumblings of, the first single to Gibbs' next album, which is on Warner Brothers. So he's bouncing around labels too.
Oh, wow. That would be dope. That would be dope. He's done great collaboration projects to your point before with Alchemist and Madlib. So I'm wondering if he would do another one or just a solo joint, but he's been on a spree lately, man. Really dope.
Absolutely. Any outside of that, and I told you yesterday, our playlist is just dope as we're gearing up for the AFH year end, where we're going to talk about, as we did last year, some of our favorites. But any other highlights from the week that you would want to talk about?
Yeah, no, just the Sally and Apollo Brown one, man, has been the one that's really been for me. I know French Montana dropped something. I haven't listened to his album yet. Haven't listened to Adele, but I plan to dig into that. I watched the Oprah special, which is pretty dope. The Will Smith Oprah interview was great also. I think we talked about Silk Sonic last time. And I haven't even looked today, man. It's new music. I got to check out the new music for the week. But yeah, man, it's been a great, strong fourth quarter.
Yeah, I was just Crime Apple out of Jersey, put out a new album, and he's done a lot of things with Muggs and Drew, get some different people. I was playing his album right before we spoke. But yeah, man, do you have a song of the week?
I do. My song of the week is "Smells Like Teen Spirit" by Nirvana. At the Chappelle show, DJ Trauma played a lot of stuff, and I find this a lot. Hip hop DJs will drop in, "Smells Like Teen Spirit." I've heard Ninth Wonder do it. It's got those heavy drums, and it's got like a hip hop attitude, and it just sounded great. And they just had their 30th anniversary. They did a release of a deluxe version with like live versions remastered and stuff like that. So that one just hit me in a different way this time.
That one was on Nevermind, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
First song,
Yeah,
first song, never mind.
I had the MTV Unplugged tape, and I used to trade with my cousin. He had Nevermind. So it's an ignorant question to ask, but yeah, I that was always my jam. That and Come As You Are. But my song, I played Master Ace's A Long Hot Summer this week, and we included Disposable Arts in our GOAT Finding the GOAT album competition. We give Master Ace a ton of flowers, and he deserves even more from hip hop. But there's a joint on Long Hot Summer that kind of escaped me, and I played it called The Grind featuring Apocalypse, and I played it this week, and it's just, Ace has so many joints, but that one, is we're both out here grinding and making it happen. That one really resonated.
Dope. That's dope, man.
Produced by Crisis, who has one of the year's better albums too, so bringing it full circle.
100%. Well, I look forward to us chopping it up with our list, and always a pleasure, man.
Yeah, man. Next time I'm gonna get more light. We're dealing with some technical difficulties today. I'm in the shadows, like I'm the villain in, what was it, Police Academy 5 or something? But all right, man. Until we do it again.
All right, man. Peace.
All right, man. Peace.